Hello and welcome to Senior Speak New Hampshire on your Concord TV, sponsored by AARP. I am Karen Ulmer Dorsch, the producer and host of this program, and also a volunteer for AARP. For over 61 years, AARP has been the champion for adults 50 years and older. As our viewers know, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan, social mission organization that fights to make your voice heard on the issues that matter to your health, your wealth, and yourself. And as you are also aware, the 2020 election is like none other than we have ever experienced, for we are in the midst of a pandemic. Now more than ever, we want to ensure that you are well informed about the issues that lie ahead, the challenges that lie ahead, what is at stake, and AARP's guiding principles on 5 key issues concerning your health, your wealth, and yourself. And we hope that when you cast your ballot in November for the candidates of your choice, you will keep in mind AARP's priorities on these issues that we will discuss today. And they are strengthening Social Security, protecting and strengthening Medicaid, lowering prescription drug prices, building a strong long-term healthcare system, and securing the economic health of Americans 50 plus. And it is with that goal in mind that I am delighted to say that joining us today is my good friend and AARP's Associate Director of Advocacy, Douglas McNutt, who will discuss his expertise on these issues with us. He will talk about the challenges that lie ahead, what is at stake, and AARP's guiding principles on these issues. Doug, thank you sincerely for taking the time to be with us today. And without further ado, let's jump right in and start with Social Security. What are some of the challenges?
Sure, I'm sorry. Well, there are challenges, as many people know. For many older people, Social Security is their primary source of income. And for those people, maintaining Social Security is absolutely critical. We know that, and there have been various studies that say that sometime in the future that the amount of money to fund Social Security will run low of what is needed. And it's our goal to make sure that that doesn't happen, that we protect this important program for our people who are dependent on it. And we're all dependent on it in the sense that we've all paid our money into it, and we see it as a benefit that we're entitled to. So we feel very strongly that this is an important issue. Our members tell us over and over again that this is one of the most important things that they do. So we want to make sure it's solvent. We want to make sure that we perhaps enhance benefits for those who need additional benefits. And that's where really the fundamental issue for us.
Okay, yeah, definitely it's a high priority with me because it's about half of my monthly income.
Yeah, and for some people, Karen, it's more than it's almost their sole income. It is their sole income, and so even if it's half of your income, it's obviously critical. But if it's all your income,
oh yes,
really critical.
Yes, it really is. So what are some of our guiding principles there, Doug?
Yeah, so again, we want to make sure that there are actions taken to make it more solvent for the future. We want to have reforms to make it so that Social Security is more beneficial for those who are dependent on it and rely on it. And we just want to make sure that we maintain the program as it is, that we recognize that it's a program that people have paid into over their working lifetimes, and that it's there for them when they need it.
Okay. And Medicare?
So Medicare, again, Medicare is probably, if we talk to our members, the two programs that come to top of mind for them are Social Security and Medicare. Medicare, prior to the imposition of, or the Medicare going into effect in the 60s, there really wasn't adequate health insurance for people 65 plus. And if it was there, it was too expensive for people. They just couldn't do it. So for Medicare again has funding issues down into the future. It's critical that Medicare be adequately funded. It's critical that we don't change the nature of the program, that we keep Medicare as it is, as a program that we can, not as a voucher system, and as some people have suggested in the past. It's important that we look at Medicare as part of the overall healthcare system and try to do what we can to control costs. And part of that includes prescription drugs. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later, but that is a factor with regard to Medicare that people don't realize that the Secretary of Health and Human Services isn't allowed to negotiate prescription drug prices. So, this is an area where Medicare is not different from other health insurance in the fact that it's impacted by the high cost of prescription drugs and other issues. And also another issue that we always care about at AARP is that we try to do what we can to root out fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicare. That has always been a priority item for us, and something that we are involved with. And even at AARP on a state level, I know in our fraud prevention work, that we've dealt with Medicare as a part of that as well.
Where do we stand with the state there in Medicare? Where I'm trying to think of what I want to say. With the prescription drugs, we have achieved some gain there, have we not?
Yes, on the state level, we did this year. See, the interesting thing about the prescription drug piece is there's certain things that are at a national level and there's certain things you can do at a state level. So at a state level this year, I feel like we were involved in a very productive piece of legislation, which did a number of things. It created the ability to import prescription drugs from Canada. It created a drug transparency board that will look at the price of drugs and examine why some drugs cost what they do and make recommendations. And we also passed one of the really good laws with regard to insulin, caps on costs for insulin, capping the costs, the copays, and other things at $30 a month, which is one of the best in the country, I believe, and really is important when you think about the fact that there's so many people that are dependent on insulin. It's a critical part of their health. So that is something that those are all things that were done this year. Now, they haven't all been implemented yet, but we did move forward on all of that. The Medicare side, in terms of Part D of Medicare, which is most people's prescription drug piece, that's where the ability to negotiate drug prices, we think, would be very helpful. And we also want to have Medicare have a cap on out-of-pocket costs with regard to prescription drugs. So those are two key things under Medicare that we want to do. But you're right that we did do those other things on a state level.
But there's no national policy on that.
Well, there's a national policy, but there's certain things that, that law, that federal law with regard to negotiating drug prices has to be changed at the federal level. So we can't change that here in the state.
Okay. Are there other comments you want to make about the prescription drug situation, Doug?
Well, I think prescription drugs is, when you think about it, it's sort of a combination. One of the things I guess I really want to point out is AARP is working this issue all over the country. And so we've done things here in New Hampshire. Almost every state in the country is doing some work on prescription drugs. And then, as I said, there's those couple of federal issues that I just mentioned that we are pursuing on the federal level. So we're guns blazing everywhere on this.
And very busy.
Yeah, we're trying our best.
Okay, and so moving on to the next issue, which is probably the long-term care.
Yeah, that is a huge issue right now. It's always been a bread and butter issue for AARP. It's always been something that we have tried to lead on because it's another issue that is of central importance to our members. And our members tell us, in poll after poll or survey after survey, that over 90% of them want to stay at home as long as they can, enjoy their best lives. So COVID-19 has unfortunately created some difficulties on this level, particularly on the long-term care side, and I guess particularly in nursing homes where we have had unfortunately, a substantial number of the people who have died of COVID in New Hampshire have been residents of long-term care facilities.
Not only New Hampshire, Doug, but across the nation.
Across the nation, and no less so in New Hampshire. So we are involved in a number of things where we are trying to make sure that there's the ability for people to do some visitation. I don't know if everyone realizes, I'm sure people who have residents in nursing homes know that they haven't been able to do physical visitation much since I guess mid-February. There's been some changes recently where there've been some ability to have outdoor visits, and so that is a key issue for us, is to see, people haven't had much ability to see family members for like 6 months. It's a lot. And the other thing is that we reasonably know that this isn't going to end in the next couple of months either. So we are pushing hard to try to create a little more transparency in terms of what is going on in nursing homes, more reporting of incidences of COVID. We want to see as much as we can do to pursue visitation and set up ways in which people can visit. We know that the federal government has actually proposed some new rules to provide some resources for nursing homes to have PPE and maybe plexiglass screens and other things to make it so that perhaps you could visit in nursing homes. One of the other problems in nursing homes right now is that a lot of the residents haven't been able to eat meals together. They haven't been able to be involved in activities together. And one thing that we're concerned about, there's a long-term care ombudsman who has been involved in nursing home issues and residential care issues for years and have a federal law. And they have been really a source of help to families and residents, help them with issues. And they have not been able to go into nursing homes either. So we're working on all these issues to try to see if we can't, just open things up a little bit. Now, we are not for 1 minute suggesting that people should willy-nilly be able to go in a nursing home. We recognize all the dangers, but I think what we feel is that there needs to be a balancing. We need to balance the risks. We need to be able to take, reasonable measures to make sure that people are safe, that they have protective equipment, maybe that they get their temperature taken on the way in, that they indicate whether or not if they had ill. We don't want anybody with COVID going into nursing homes. We don't want that.
No.
We absolutely don't want that. In fact, we know that it's transmission from the outside that has caused these issues on the nursing home level. And then the last thing I do want to say about this too is that we think that this really shows the fact that we need more and better options in the homes and communities so that we can keep people in those places, because on some level, it's the fact that people have been in congregate settings that have almost made them more vulnerable to some degree. So we want to keep that in mind as well.
Right. Yes. Yes, it really has been a real, COVID has created a real eye opener where that particular issue is concerned, it seems to me. So I think
Yeah.
it's really important when we, visit candidates that we find out what their positions are on what they intend to do to strengthen this particular issue. Not only
Yeah.
this one, but all the others that we're talking about too.
Yeah. No, I mean, these are, none of these issues, frankly, are much of a surprise for anybody who's been involved, who worked with us at AARP for a while. It's just that COVID has added another layer of complexity and that needs to be dealt with. But it doesn't fundamentally change any of our positions, because basically we're about the same things. Social Security is still very important. Medicare is critical to people's health. Long-term care has been a problem my whole career. I mean, I'm 65 years old, and I've been working on long-term care issues for about 30 years. And sometimes I'm sad to say I don't see that much improvement, but,
Well,
but
we can only hope that with our eyes more open more widely to the issues, that perhaps we can see some steps moving forward on these. I believe that the last thing we wanted to talk about was the securing the economic health of Americans 50 plus.
Right. And again, this is an issue that's been impacted by COVID as well, not surprisingly, because everything has. Obviously, there are people who have lost jobs because of COVID. There are people who have been furloughed, and people probably working fewer hours. And one of the things that we want, or several things that we think are important. We think the unemployment level among older Americans is bad, if not worse than for other groups. And it's critical for people to be able to work when they want to work. We know in many cases that people are very interested in working past. 65 is not the cutoff anymore. Or it's not, and people work longer, and people get a tremendous sense of fulfillment out of what they do, and they need to be able to do that. So we think it's important that we deal with things like unemployment. We make sure there's adequate unemployment for people who have been laid off. We think it's important that there be adequate paid family leave in instances. A lot of people who these days, who can be sort of my age, can have elderly parents that they might be taking care of, and those things are important too. Well, we need to make sure that there is, a paid family leave program, which we've worked on some in New Hampshire and across the country as well. We think that there need to be ways to ensure that people don't discriminate against older workers in terms of employment. Obviously, anytime you're in a recession like this, there's some level of competition for jobs and things. And, we just sort of generally believe that older workers are a real bonus and really have skills and the ability to mentor, younger workers. And so we want to make sure that we have policies that promote that and give them the ability to be able to work.
Right, and I think there has been data that shows that intergenerational workforces are much stronger than the ones that we have seen in the past, because it's a win-win situation for all ages. The young people who are mentored by the older.
Yeah, and we really believe that the older workers maybe certainly have skills and things they can pass down and can mentor younger workers and help them. And maybe everybody doesn't have to work 40 hours a week, and we're not necessarily saying that. Maybe they don't want to, but it might be that they do want to. They do really enjoy getting out and doing mean, that's one of the things that's so hard about COVID is that people aren't able, to go out
Yeah,
and interact with people in the same way, that we have
right,
traditionally.
right. I'm having a little bit of a fun experience because I'm mentoring a little girl who is in kindergarten, and she's teaching me a lot about the internet that I don't know. So we're having a good time. Okay.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's right.
Okay, Doug, talk a little bit about, is next year a budget year for New Hampshire?
Yeah, yeah. Next year is a budget year, and not surprisingly, given all of the concerns with uh, COVID, we are concerned that their revenue shortfalls already. So the state revenues have already begun to drop, and so it'll be a very difficult year. Really, we'll have to make sure that our priorities are dealt with and are approached in a fair way. That I mean, the budget process, as you know, you've been involved with it a couple of times, tends to be difficult at best. This year will make it even more difficult. So it'll really be important for us to make sure that our values and our needs are met through that kind of process. And we'll be working on that come probably late December. I mean, the budget comes out, the governor's version of the budget is usually proposed in early February or maybe mid-February, and then they work on it in the House, and then it passes the House, it goes to the Senate probably late spring, goes to the governor, sometime in June maybe. Now the interesting thing this time is this will be the first time we've ever done this whole process essentially via Zoom.
Yeah,
Uh,
yes.
I-
That's going to be a challenge.
As you know, we have typically had these large budget hearings where we've been able to go to the State House and appear. And so, this will be different. And it'll be important for people. It'll be interesting because we'll have to come up with new and different ways to get our message across. We'll have to reach out to legislators. They won't see you. I mean, I know that there'll be a screen and they can see a lot of faces there, but I think we're going to have to probably come up with some other ways to make sure we are visible and get
Right,
our message.
right. And I'm sure that I will probably ask you to come back on later and help, talk about how our viewers can make a difference in that realm also.
Absolutely.
So, yes. So, Doug, thank you so much for your time and your expertise, sharing your time and expertise with us today. I have found this extremely valuable, and I'm sure that our viewers will have found this true also. And viewers, thank you for joining us. And please vote in November. I am sure you are aware that the 50+ voters are the largest group to cast their ballot and make their voices heard. And this election, whether it be by absentee ballot, which AARP is encouraging, or by voting in person, make your voice heard. And until next month, be good, do good, be one.